Alright, AP Econ, this is our second to last video. This is our last video with the graph, and it is about foreign exchange, specifically foreign exchange rates. And so what we are going to do today is we're going to make up a scenario where we are going to use two real countries, two real currencies, and we are going to use supply and demand. So I hope you're ready to go back and revisit your supply and demand graphs. But wait a minute, I'm drawing two of them back to back. What you're going to see here is that when we do supply and demand in foreign exchange markets, it's two different supply and demand graphs. And you'll see why. Let's see our countries. Let's say our countries are the US and then Korea, specifically South Korea. Now, South Korea's currency is the won, and we can abbreviate this like SKW, South Korean won. Or we can just do WN since that's the same. And then the US currency is the dollar. And within these foreign exchange markets, we have a couple things. We have supply, of course. Go back to chapter 4 if you need a review about supply and demand, how they work together. And you'll see that the demand and the supply for the dollar and the demand and supply for the Korean won are in an equilibrium. We have an equilibrium price, we have an equilibrium quantity. But I don't want to just put price here. Price is important, but the price is actually the exchange rate for which these currencies are measured, like their cost, right? So how much is $1, let's say? How much is $1? In the foreign exchange market? Well, I just looked it up. It's a little over, but we're gonna round here. It's a little over 1,000 won, which means that our price is measured in won. If the price goes up, that means that it costs more won for $1. And then what we need to do over here is see that is 1/1000th of $1 for 1 won. I hope that makes sense. The price of a currency, or the price of money, is measured in another currency. Go back to like the money market. The price of money is measured in the interest rate, and this is international economics here. So the price of $1 is measured in won, or you could compare it to any other country. If this was Mexico, we could use pesos, or India, we could use rupees, whatever. But what we want to look at here is how or when or what happens when we change this graph. Let's say that something happens. Well, let's say that political conditions in South Korea deteriorate. That means they go down. That means it doesn't look very good for South Koreans. For whatever reason, their government becomes oppressive, or they're very corrupt, or something like that. Now, of course, this is fictional, but let's say what happens. Let's see what happens in this case, in the short run. Well, what's going to happen is, think about yourself as an American. Are you going to be demanding or supplying more won? Let's see. Are you going to be demanding more won? If political conditions in South Korea deteriorate, you're going to be demanding less won. I hope that makes sense to you. And that means, according to our graph, that the equilibrium price has gone down. Let's say it's 0.00009 or something like that. What this means is that the price of the won has gone up, or sorry, the price of the won has gone down. You now, for a won, only need 0.0009 of $1. But this isn't the only thing that happens. The reason why we draw these graphs back to back is that by demanding less won, you are inherently supplying less dollars. Like these two things have to happen. You can't just have one and not the other on these foreign exchange graphs. And so what we see happen here is, and this is like, I don't know, I'm not going to do the inverse of that. I'm not going to get it right. But let's say you get 1100 or something. now you get 1100 won as opposed to just 1000, and the same things here, right? The price of the won has gone down and the price of the dollar has gone up relative to the won. So what we need to do here is determine a couple things. The US dollar, the price has gone up. So what is this called? Go to your book and look up what this is called. This is very important. And when you say that the US dollar price went up, that's not right on the AP test. You need to say the US dollar appreciates. This does mean an increase in price relative to the South Korean won. And then we could say that the won depreciates. Remember, the price of the won has gone down relative to the US dollar. Now you may be asking yourself, that this represents the value of the dollar. Go back to your cheat sheet and recognize when the middle one is, when it's like up, up, down, right? So normally on your cheat sheet, the interest rate goes up, the value of the dollar goes up. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go see my website. And then net exports goes down. You notice that there's always this relationship that no matter what happens to the value of the dollar, net exports does something opposite. So let's see why this is the case. Why is it such that if the value of the dollar goes up, which it does here, why do exports go down? Well, if it costs more won to get a dollar, South Koreans can buy less American-made goods, therefore exports goes down. I hope that makes sense to you. In addition, the United States, if you have dollars, you can get more won, therefore you will import more from South Korea. I hope that makes sense. And the opposite is true as well. Now, there are a bunch of other reasons why these graphs can change. It's on page like 873, but some of the reasons that this can change would be interest rates. For example, if the interest rate in the United States goes up, Koreans will demand more dollars, and therefore they will have to supply more won. Therefore, you can determine what happens. Let's say that there is a change in productivity. If the Koreans are more productive, then they will demand more U.S. goods, and so on and so forth. So you can determine what happens there. We've already addressed political and economic stability, but also just preferences. When Pokemon came out in the 90s, you could probably go back and measure what ends up happening to the foreign exchange value of the yen versus the dollar, because Pokemon's made in Japan. And you might be able to see an effect there. If the United States has more preference for Japanese goods, then perhaps they demand more yen, and therefore the yen appreciates. This is a whole lot of fun because it's supply and demand. So go and play around with this. Come up with a couple currencies. And I'm not so much concerned about these numbers here as I am concerned about the idea that you know that what happens to the dollar or the other currency that you choose. Does it appreciate or depreciate? And then in your mind, think about exports here. Like what's going to happen in the long run, or in the short run to United States exports. According to this situation, it's going to go down. The exports will go down. In any case, our next video is our very last one. So sad.